Hello, this is Soundout here with a new Transformers review. Today we're looking at something recently released in the Transformers world, specifically from the Transformers Generations Fall of Cybertron toy line. And it is the single most anticipated Transformers release of 2012 for myself, and I do think it paid off. So, as this is the last review I'll be doing in 2012, I thought, well, first of all, let's make it do parts so it'll be interesting and put as much detail as I want to in it. And let's review what I thought was my favorite Transformer of 2012. Today we're looking at Transformers Generations Fall of Cybertron Soundwave and Soundblaster. These two are the first Voyagers released for the Fall of Cybertron line. And it's actually the first Generations Voyagers that we've actually gotten, if you don't count GDO. These are the first new mold Voyagers, that's for sure. Now, this is, of course, like you might say, hey, what about that nice War for Cybertron Soundwave we got that was really awesome and accomplished a lot and was a really cool toy? Well, he's a bit bigger now. And there's some other bonus notions to be noted. And before we take a look at the figures themselves, the reason I am covering these two, just in case you don't know, Soundblaster is a direct repaint of Soundwave, so I figured I'll cover both of them in one video. And definitely really excited. Soundwave was the first Transformer I ever owned, and it's by far my favorite character of the franchise. And finally, with this Soundwave release, we're getting a good, decently sized Soundwave. Now, this does cause some problems, but in other ways, there's no problems at all. So let's take these aside. We'll take a look at the packaging. Since it is brand new, we have not gotten Fall of Cybertron Voyagers up to this point. So we got Soundwave and Soundblaster, Laserbeak included, and Buzzsaw included. Now, if you are curious, the way these are shipped out, they're shipped out in a single case. This is Wave 1, and to that extent, you have 3 Soundwaves and 1 Soundblaster per case. This is nice so that we don't have Soundblasters cluttering the shelves, since Soundwave is a bit more recognizable. So, if you do want Soundblaster, you're going to kind of have a slightly more difficult time finding him, due to him being 1 per case, as opposed to Soundwave's 3 per case. The same thing is with the Wave 2, the Autobot Wave, because this is both Decepticons, where we have 3 Grimlocks and 1 Blaster. So that's interesting to say the least. So on the sides of the box, you get a nice little shot of all his mini deployers, cassette bots, whatever you want to call them. You got Frenzy, Rumble, Rat-Bat, Ravage. Same ones over here, just a bit reordered. And definitely interesting that's why those are advertised on the side of the box. It's because they exist. Stay tuned for part 2. So on the bottom, you get Decepticon logo. So very nice packaging overall. You get Decepticon 01 series, number 001 for the Voyager series. It does say Transformers Generations at the top. On the bottom, hey look, you can get the cassettes. This is the first Soundwave we've gotten since the G1 toy to actually have a full range of cassettes available. It may leave their data discs this time, but works with the Fall of Cybertron aesthetic. I am really excited for this. So I got Soundwave Fall of Cybertron. On the back, you have a nice bio. You see Laserbeak data disc figure included, which we'll go over later. You can see his robot mode. Now, it does show a gun, him and on Soundblaster as well. There is a gun. It looks like G1 Prime gun. That was cut from production for various reasons. Probably because it doesn't make any sense, and probably because, well, I don't know. Probably cost reasons. I mean, you are getting technically 2 figures here. So you got Soundwave. Soundwave has spent centuries making himself indispensable to the Decepticon cause. His body is packed with electronic communications gear. He is capable of teasing even the faintest transmissions out of the microwave background, cracking and the toughest quantum code, and jamming the most powerful signal. Together with his minions, he is one of the most effective weapons in the Decepticon arsenal. So you got communication struct mode, Laserbeak data disc included, data disc figures eject and auto convert. Work with any data disc figures sold separately. Join us online. Find us on Facebook, Transformers.com, and YouTube. There is a little schematic here for the stats, which is really nice. So that's the box for Soundwave. Soundblaster's box has imposed differently, and this time with Buzzsaw. He is 01 series number 002, and everything else is reformat for Soundblaster. Soundblaster, restored to fully functioning state by the loyalty of his minions and the arcane science of an alien world, Soundwave takes a new name to reflect his new lease on life. No longer content to simply manage electronic warfare for the Decepticons, he charges into battle against the Autobots, using devastating sonic attacks to disable and disorient his enemies, so that his minions can finish them off. So it's working back to the Headmaster's origin, because that's the only time Soundblaster ever appeared in a cartoon. Was in Headmasters, and in that cartoon he was rebuilt by his minions after his battle to the death with Blaster, and they used the technology of Planet Master, where the Headmasters come from, to rebuild him. So, yeah, if you think that's spoilers, this show's been out since 1986, so, or 86, I don't know. It's been around for 20 plus years, so it's no longer spoiler content. Anyways, so there you go, there is the boxes. Looking at the vehicle modes, we will start with Soundwave, naturally, because he is the most recognizable of the two, even though they're both technically Soundwaves. Now, the vehicle mode is a bit big, and it's definitely one of the largest, is the largest of the single vehicle modes for Fall of Cybertron and the War for Cybertron from Generations. It is the largest Generations vehicle mode, you could say. So, you do have a nice representation of his truck mode from the game. I believe in Fall of Cybertron you did get this little seat and this gun on the top. And I haven't played the game, so I can't tell you much more beyond that. But looking at it from a Soundwave fan perspective, it looks like Soundwave had a vehicle mode that still allowed him to be Soundwave. You got these nice clear purple tires. You still got the little window. Now, you can convert it into a boombox mode. There's a way of doing it. It's an unofficial fan mode. If I figure it out and I've come up with a cool way of doing it that no one else can do on the internet, I'll make a video about it. But otherwise, I'm just going to not bother. So anyways, you get this nice big truck mode. Now, I do mean big. As if you compare it to, say, the War for Cybertron Soundwave, released last year? Yeah, it was last year, Generations, or 2 years ago. 2 years ago for Generations. You can see that this is a Deluxe class and this is a Voyager class, and you can see how much larger the new Soundwave is compared to the older Soundwave. Definitely an improvement overall in terms of detail, paint apps, and size. This Soundwave did seem a little small at the time, but it was pretty much the best Soundwave we'd gotten up to the point, because the others we had were Cybertron Soundwave, who was lacking things, and G1 Soundwave, who, well, was a G1 toy. It was the best scaled Soundwave we really had, but he really didn't feel menacing due to the small stature of him. So you can see that there are a lot of differences, but it's mostly the same vehicle mode. Now, if you would like, we have a G1 Soundwave here. This is my first Transformer I ever got. Paid $0.25 for him at a garage sale. And you can see that tape deck, tape deck and vehicle, kind of a difference. But you can see how big he is. Now, looking at Soundblaster, we're just going to use Soundblaster. You can take a look at him. He replaces the purples with reds, so that is red tires, red screen, just like in Headmasters on the original Soundblaster toy in Japan. The seat is still the same color. He's now mostly black instead of mostly blue. And there are some modified paint apps, like yellows now instead of the reds. It's kind of interesting that he went purple, red, yellow, yellow. The gun barrel is now red instead of gold, but pretty much the back section is the same as well. They are pretty much the same vehicle mode, and they will be retooled into Blaster in Wave 2. So we have seen 3 out of the 4 Fall of Cybertron Voyagers will be based on this mold. It's up to you if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just happy to have a good Soundwave. with cassettes. So having Soundblaster is a nice bonus. Now, if you are not into buying a second version of a toy, the bio does state that Soundblaster was rebuilt from Soundwave, so you could say this was Soundwave before being rebuilt, and this is Soundblaster after he's rebuilt, and he's much larger now. So you could go with that. But overall, the two vehicle modes are pretty much identical. They roll really nicely when you have everything situated. But what are we going to do now? We need to look at the transformation. Now, naturally, these toys are basically identical mold-wise, so there's no reason to show transformation for both. So I'll demonstrate it on Soundwave. Now, the transformation is very reminiscent of the War for Cybertron version, with some modifications. Specifically, there's only one weapon you had to deal with this time, which parts forms, not that awesome, but you know, what can you do? And this section is modified. It is now a flip open panel instead of being part of the feet, and so now the feet are separate molded pieces, which make the feet look more accurate. So first you want to take this chest piece. It collapses down really nicely and makes it more streamlined. You can open this up. You can see his head inside. You can untab. There's tabs inside, which you can untab the legs and untab the arms. So we'll just untab the arms and legs and get them out of the way. Whoa, not had that happen before. The tire does come out if you're not careful. So you just got to unpeg this, bring the leg down, and you got to fold his arms out to the side. Now the waist piece will untab from inside. It's kind of stuck, and you click it in place here, and it stays nice and aligned. Flip the wheel sections forward. You can flip them to this direction or this direction. I'm just going to go all the way, so you can flip the feet up. Just bring them down like that. So there you got most of the robot mode right there. You want to take his arms, fold them up, fold these wheels back. The shoulders will move up and around. This panel will fold back behind him. You can bring this out, and his hands are hidden in here. So get one hand. You do the same for the other side, basically like this. Flip out his hand and rotate it forward. Now the last tricky part, as you can see here, is you got to take the backpack piece. So you click this forward and bring it around. You slide that in as far as it'll go, bring that down, and you got to fit that in there. You can actually click it into place, and that comes around and closes together. Last but not least, on Mr. Soundwave, is you need to plug the cannon into his shoulder. And there is Follow Cybertron Soundwave in robot mode. Alright, so here is Soundwave in robot mode. If you are curious how this robot mode comes from this vehicle, you just saw the transformation, obviously, but if you were to stand this vehicle up, he does do some size changing, which is good because robots in disguise. Now, if we look at the figure, you'll realize he is quite bulky. He is very large as well. He's larger than a lot of Voyager class figures been released this year, mainly in the Transformers Prime line, because they took a lot of sacrifices for their light-up gimmicks in terms of budgeting. Now, you can look at the head here. The head looks great. It looks like an updated Soundwave, looks like the G1 cartoon, while also looking like the Fall of Cybertron design, Fall of Cybertron / War for Cybertron design. It is light. It does have light piping in his visor, but is that kind of light piping where you'll notice it if it's on, but if there's no light coming through, there's really no difference. It's a vibrant orange, and it works really nicely. The shoulder cannon does plug in right here. If you are curious, there is a hole. You could, if you want to, use the cannon as a hand blaster, but that's stupid. This is Soundwave. It is a shoulder cannon. So very nice. You do see you have a button here that will come into play later. His arms look very good. They're well proportioned. Same with the legs. Everything looks well proportioned this time around, where the War for Cybertron version looked very skinny. You can see a pair of speakers inside the chest piece. You can actually move the chest piece out of the way, kind of, and you can see there is some molded detail underneath, which is always appreciated. And it is streamlined, so he's no longer has the giant spike stomach. If you do take a look here, we will bring in War for Cybertron Soundwave. You can see he's much larger, being a Voyager class figure. But you can tell this guy is much skinnier. His arms seem huge because his legs aren't as tall. His shoulder cannon's not near large enough. I did like the reference with the guns becoming like batteries, but overall, it's not as good as the Fall of Cybertron version. No, this one is still good for some things, and we'll get into that. For comparison's sake, here is my G1 Soundwave, who is barely standing up, but besides the point, you can see that we finally have a Soundwave that is taller than the G1 counterpart. Good job, Fall of Cybertron. So very nice indeed. So for articulation-wise, this is where it really surprised me of how it was done. So you got a swivel neck joint. It's really tight, but that's nice. You can rotate the cannon. You've got ball joint shoulders. Well, not really ball joint shoulders, but you got full movement, really. It's got the 360 shoulder, the hinge. You can adjust this a bit. He's got a bicep swivel here. His arm can extend out even farther there. So you got bicep swivel. You got ratcheted elbow, which is nice and clicky. You got inward, because that wrist didn't need to go that far. That's articulation. And the wrist do swivel, so if you do want working bicep, that does work as well. You have the same thing on the other side. No waist joint due to the transformation, but you got full range hips. You got rotation here, and you got ratcheted knees. Ratcheted knees are the best knees because they will not get loose on you. And you got a pivot in the foot. So you can get in some really cool poses as Soundwave, ready to just destroy something. But really, what is Soundwave without any of his minions? Because that's really what the character's about. So, as I focus back onto his chest piece, I'll let Soundwave do the honors here because he's given enough articulation. This had to be intentional, especially with the way the hand's molded. And there is the spring-loaded chest door. Was not expecting the chest door to be spring-loaded, but I was expecting it. I just didn't think it would happen, and it is really nice. It is nice and springy. You push that button, that chest door is going down. It is really nice and tight. Now you may notice there is Laserbeak, the first of the data disc figures, because you can't really call them cassettes when they're like that. So all you gotta do is you just push this piece in, this little piece here, and out pops Laserbeak. Now, some of these fit in here better than others, but you can fit up to 3 because that chest cavity gets pretty deep. Only downside is you have that. Now, I've only figured out how to get one of these to stay in while in vehicle mode, so keep that in mind. But when there's not in there, it doesn't look bad. Now, let's talk about the data disc. So here is Laserbeak. Now, here's a little disc. You've got a Decepticon logo. He's red with some silver paint details. Now you're like, well, how does this transform? If I fail, this just transforms like this. There is Laserbeak. All the discs are spring-loaded, so if you get them to launch out of Soundwave's chest and they hit the ground just right, they will fully transform. And it is really nice. Now, what's really cool is you can look at the detail here. He does have 2 eyes on his head, along with a nose-mounted camera, just like in the '86 movie. He does have a couple pairs of cannons on the side here, but overall looks like a disc that turned into a bird. He has no legs, unfortunately. These kind of look like legs, but not really. And the paint detail's not there very much. But for a pack-in figure that spring transforms, not bad at all. He does have more paint apps than a bot shot, so that works. And it works really well. All you gotta do is fold that in, close those together, drop it. You see, I have this problem with them flipping on me. You just drop it, and it opens up. Now, if you are afraid of dropping your Transformer toys, all you gotta do is just hold it in the right place and just press that button, and there you go. So, very nice. Now, there is one complaint, 'cause no toy is perfect, with this figure that I have, and that is he really has no place to hold Laserbeak. There's no pegs, but you can get him to kind of hold him like that. That's the best I can muster. You can try to get him on his shoulder, and then he's kind of pecking at his head, which just doesn't really work very well. But you can fool around with it. There are other ways to balance him. But overall, really neat, because we finally have another Soundwave with a laser beak. Last time Soundwave had a minion was Cybertron, and as we mentioned before, that was weird because he turned into a bomb. But there is Laserbeak. So that is Soundwave basically right there. But we're not quite done, as we do have his rebuilt self, Soundblaster. Let's take a look at Soundblaster's robot mode. So here is Soundblaster. Now you'll notice right away he is black and red instead of red or blue and purple. So the color scheme is different, and that's pretty much what you're looking at when you're getting this figure. Now, like I said, if you want to get him and not Soundwave and just get, him to have, oh look, you got the cool data disc, you got your upgraded War for Cybertron Soundwave, definitely worth it. Now, if you do get Soundwave and you really don't have any interest in Soundblaster, there's nothing really new coming to this figure aside from the paint scheme. So if you don't like the paint scheme, I wouldn't bother. At least Hasbro does realize this as well, and that's why it's packed one per case. Now with Soundblaster though, if you watch the Headmasters, or like me, watching the Headmasters, either online or through Shout Factory's awesome Japanese collection DVD release, I was not paid to say that, I just think Shout Factory's cool, you'll know that Soundblaster is pretty badass, especially how he came to be. So they did change up a couple things from the regular Soundblaster line. They added this yellow and this gold. Now adding yellow and gold really kind of breaks up the monotony. A lot of times I noticed with Soundblaster in the show, he looked like Soundwave most of the time, just a bit darker if you're looking at him from the back. Now, if you're looking at this, he does have a nice color of black/gray that does make him look vastly different from Soundwave's brighter blues. And it's really, really nice change. Now, light piping works just the same. Whether you have light shining in it or not, it's really no difference. It is a bit more noticeable than on Soundwave's red visor. Interestingly enough, I'm bringing in Soundwave here. So, with Soundblaster, you got the yellow visor. Soundwave, you got the red. But in the Headmasters cartoon, which this isn't based on, I'm just saying, Soundblaster has a red visor. But, it helps break up the monotony, I think, just having the yellow visor. And it's a nice, clever reference to how the original toy had a yellow visor, but the cartoon had a red one. So, having these two side by side, you gotta be a hardcore Soundwave fan or Soundblaster fan to really pick up a Soundblaster if you are getting Soundwave. Now, if you don't like Soundwave's colors and you like Soundblasters, go ahead. But really, what you're looking at is how dedicated are you to collecting the cassette tapes? Because the cassette tapes, there's a new one. Mr. Repaint himself, Buzzsaw. Now, if everyone remembers G1, Buzzsaw is the repaint of Laserbeak. So what is it here? The repaint of Laserbeak. There's really no getting around this. Now, I think that it would have made people upset if they put Ratbat in here instead of Buzzsaw, because Ratbat's actually got new molding to him. But Buzzsaw is still cool. It's that one that everyone forgets. Didn't get much screen time in the cartoon, but everyone wants a Buzzsaw to go with their Soundwave. And it really looks nice with the golds and the brown lining. And again, transforms simply like that. So, basically, there's two reasons to get Soundblaster. That is, hardcore Soundwave fan, and you want Buzzsaw to go with Soundwave, or you like the color scheme and want a Soundblaster figure. And if you like the character in the Headmasters, go ahead as well. It's really a light recommendation. I would heavily recommend Soundwave, because he is iconic, and there's another reason I'll go into next. But Soundblaster is for you fans of the Headmasters, and for people that want to drop the extra $23 just to get Buzzsaw. But if you're really doing that, I'm going to tell you, this is not that exciting. If you got Laserbeak, you have Buzzsaw, basically. So, this brings up an interesting point, though. Why was this Soundblaster made? Well, Hasbro now has an easy repaint. But wait, you say, they're doing Blaster. Blaster has remolded parts. This was a simple repaint. And fans have been wanting a Soundblaster figure for as long as I can remember. We have not gotten a proper Soundblaster figure in America. Japan has gotten Soundblaster in their original Headmasters line, and I think he's been reissued twice over there. But America just got electrostatic Soundwave and animated. We haven't gotten a toy called Soundblaster. So this is our first Soundblaster, and I think that that's cool enough there. And there's another reason I think this was made. And that was because I don't think this mold, this figure, was designed to go with War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron. What you say? That makes no sense. Why would they design a toy with the Fall of Cybertron name on it and not make it go with the Fall of Cybertron toys? Well, so here's the problem with scaling Soundwave. If you put them with the rest of the Fall of Cybertron collection, like Optimus Prime, and Jazz, and Shockwave, and Bruticus. Wait a second. He's kind of bigger than everyone else. I mean, Bruticus overtowers him because he's 5 robots in one. But Soundwave just towers over Shockwave and Optimus Prime. He should be about the same size as them, not towering over them. Also, it's a better figure than the other 8 figures you see here on screen. But then you think about, well, wait a second. If it doesn't work with Fall of Cybertron, remember the War for Cybertron toys being a bit bigger. I mean, they were a bit bigger, right? He still towers over them. Well, wait a second. This is a video game-based character that doesn't fit in scale with any of the video game-based figures. Well, first of all, if you want to have a complete War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron display, then you're going to need to get this guy, because he's perfectly scaled. But then, you're like, wait, what collection do I put him with? And that is where I have the answer to the burning question that has been debating the fandom for some time now. By some time now, I mean 2 weeks, because that's all this toy's been out. But here is your answer. What toy line do you want to put him with? Classics. He fits with Classics. He's about the same size as Megatron, maybe a little bigger. He's a brute of a Soundwave. He's bigger than Optimus Prime, but not towering over Optimus Prime. Same with Soundblaster. If you're building a Headmaster display, there you go. Soundblaster works with them too. Say you have, City Commander, the Fans Project upgrade. Hey, look, he's pretty much scaled there. He can even go toe-to-toe with Rodimus Prime, or Protector, whichever you want to go with. He is scaled for Classics, and that, I think, is the entire reason that I think they made a Voyager-class Soundwave. Aside from the data disc gimmick, because they didn't need to do that. That, I think, was an extra thing. This is the reason he's so big. This is the reason he doesn't fit with any other Fall or War of Cybertron toys. Because he is the classic Soundwave that we have been asking for, disguised as a Fall of Cybertron toy. He fits with the aesthetic. He's got the hard angles, the chunky lines. He updates the classic design. He can turn into a boombox if you want. This is more of a classic Soundwave than the Classics reissue of this Soundwave. So, in that regard, if you have a Classics display, if you've been collecting this line for years, if you got a bunch of third-party stuff, then definitely get Soundblaster to go with them. If you got a version of Chrome Dome or Highbrow or Hardhead, you'll need a Soundblaster to complete your Headmaster's display. And that is, I think, the entire reason this figure was made, was so he could hang out with Classics. And it truly is cool to have a classic Soundwave now. I mean, if you're a hardcore collector and bought this Soundwave, there's your War for Cybertron / Fall of Cybertron Soundwave. Here is your classic Soundwave. Now, some people may not like this idea. Some people say, well, it's not really Classics if you have a United Megatron and a Fans Project Armor stuff over here. But if you're going for a G1 display, you want to complete your original Decepticon team, and you just cannot find Music Label Soundwave anywhere for a good price, buy this guy. This is the figure to put as your classic Soundwave. And I can't stress that enough because it works so well. If you have a bunch of classics figures and you really want a Soundwave for your classics, and you don't want to buy a music label one, you don't like how small the music label one is, here you go. This is the answer. Fall of Cybertron Soundwave is now my classic Soundwave. And I think that is the reason this figure works so well. You could have him as souped up Soundwave if you buy Soundblaster to go with your Fall of Cybertron toys. Or you can put him with classics. And I think it really works well. It's a great toy, and I can definitely recommend it. And if you're hardcore like me, get Soundblaster as well, because he's pretty cool. So, this is what I can recommend to all of you out there. Classics fans, this is our classic Soundwave. War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron fans, we already got our Soundwave. And really, if you like Google engineering, this is a neat toy to get. So, I bought mine at Toys R Us, same as Soundblaster, and our next review. And he was $22.99, which I believe the normal Toys R Us retail price for Voyagers is $29.99. If they do show up at Walmart and Target, then they shall be about that $20 to $25 range. So really, really affordable, much better than Music Label Soundwave, and really scaled nicely. So, without further ado, I'd like to say that this is my favorite Transformer 2012. We had a pretty lackluster year. To be honest, we've had a pretty lackluster year with not too much exciting new stuff. And I think this is where this is what 2012 in Transformers has been leading up to. Is this Soundwave here, who I think is the best one of 2012. You may disagree with me. I don't care if you disagree with me, but if you do disagree with me, let me know why. Tell me what figure you think that was released in 2012 for the first time, because first edition Prime and Bulkhead, they were released in 2011 in other countries. We didn't get them until 2012, but those don't count. Those were 2011 figures. If you disagree with me, if you say, well, Soundwave is not the coolest one, is not the best Transformer 2012, and tell me why, because I'd like to hear your opinions. So, be sure to check out Hirotaku.com for all the geek news that you could ever want to know. And be sure to stay tuned, as coming before the end of the year, probably tomorrow, I shall be posting a review of the little minions of Soundwave. That some other data discs that I also picked up. So anyways, till next time, this is Sound saying goodbye.